So in the verse, it must be assisted or helped by these 5 factors. So when the practice is assisted by these 5 factors, then it has the liberation mind, or liberation by wisdom at its fruits and benefit. So these 5 factors are virtuous behavior, or in other words, sila, or the second is learning, sutta, or knowledge. The third is discussions. The fourth and fifth is samatha and vipassana. So, if the practice is not supported by sila, then it's not possible to make progress. So the commentaries explain this sutta with a simile. So when you plant a very young trees, you must fence up these young trees. If these young trees is not fenced, then the cow or the goats will be eating away all the leaves or even the shoots, the branches. So similarly, we have to defend our practice by purification of moral conduct or virtuous behaviors. So as you know, virtuous behaviors or sila is the foundations of mental training. So as a upasaka, upasika, the requisites to become upasaka, upasika is to observe the 5 moral precepts in daily life. During retreats, you observe 9 precepts. During retreats, it's also important to observe Indriya Samvara. Indriya Samvara. Indriya Samvara is also one of the important sila. So yogis have to guard the sense door, the ear door, the tongue door, and so on, so that they will not be attacked by kilesa or defilements. Sila is defined as cetana sila. In other words, it is also involved an important factor here, cetana or intention or volitions. So sila can be defined as intentional restraints or volitional restraints. It's due to these intentional restraints, then one would abstain or restrain oneself from doing something unwholesome or violates the moral precepts. If one is not able to restrain the bodily actions, the verbal actions, then it's even more difficult to restrain the mind. So the observe sila like the pyramid. The foundation of the pyramids is very wide. It shows that you have to how much of the sila you should practice. Then it can become a support or foundation to the progress of mental training. Then, after planting a young trees, then what should you do next? Watering. So you have to water the young plants. Similarly, you have to learn the scriptures by reading or by listening. So when you have the knowledge, then you know the correct practice or the right practice. So just like watering the plant, then there's a condition for the plant to grow. But during retreats, usually meditators are advised not to read. It's because reading is a mental work, causes disruptions or interruptions to practice. So we learned by listening to the discourse given by the teachers or during the retreats. Then, beside waterings, one also have to keep on removing the wicks, because the wicks still can grow. The wicks means something like the wild grass still can be growing. So here during retreats, we do not sit down to discuss about the teaching, but we have interview. So interview is a Dhamma discussion here. So one may still have doubt during the practice, or after listening to the Dhamma talk. Then one may clear the doubt during the Dhamma discussions. But in the intensive retreats, Dhamma discussions should not be too long, because it involves talking, discussing about the practice, and so on. So talking is even talking about the Dhamma can be a hindrance during intensive retreats. So that's why during retreats, meditators also should not take up too much time during the interview, because it can become a disturbance to the mind, or you cause the mind restless, or even the mind restless. So discussion or interview during retreats, like weeding or removing the grass, the old roots, and so on. Then one also has to be careful or watchful of the young tree, because the young trees is still in the danger, because the pest means that insects can come and eat away the young leaf. If the pest or the insects eats away all the leaf, then the young tree will die. So here we need the support of samatha or calmness. But there are two ways to practice Vipassana meditation. One is preceded by samatha. The other is known as Sukha Vipassana, or bare insight. So here we practice Sukha Vipassana, pure insight. But we still need concentration. So when we develop mindfulness from one moment to next moment, we also making an effort to develop concentration from one moment to next moment. So when the mindfulness is not yet well developed, meditators have to put effort to lead the mind to the object or to direct the mind to the object. That's why the factors of samma sankappa is the factors of vitakka. The commentaries give a simile to explain what is vitakka or applied thoughts. So here, vitakka like hitting the bell. You hit the bell again and again, or you hit the bell. So similarly, we have to mindful and note the object again and again. Without the help of mental noting or labeling, the mindfulness becomes sluggish or inactive or passive. So we need to mindful and note constantly. We have to mindful and realize the characteristics of the phenomena again and again. So that's why it's known as anicca nupassana. It means one rightly understand through personal experience of impermanence again and again or repeatedly. So similarly, dukkha nupassana or anatta nupassana means we have to experience the characteristics again and again or repeatedly. So when we practice sukha vipassana, we have to develop mindfulness constantly, continuously. Then that constant mindfulness becomes a cause for the arising of deep concentration. Then such deep concentration gives rise to wisdoms of panya. Panya means it is conducive, or the knowledge that is conducive to understand the three common characteristics through personal experience. Then samatha here also refer to various concentration meditation, such as metta bhavana. When the practice is not matured, the teachers may instruct the meditators to practice the four protective meditation, chaturaraka bhavana. Most of you know the practice of metta bhavana, which is one of the chaturaraka bhavana. The other three protective meditations are buddhanusati, maranasati, and asubha bhavana. Sometimes we practice chaturaraka in the first sitting meditation in the early morning. The purpose of practicing buddhanusati can help the meditators to have strong faith or saddha in the practice. And we practice maranasati for the purpose of overcoming dinamida. Dinamida is manifested in many forms. For example, sleepy, or drowsy, sluggish, boredom, the mind is very reluctant to note, and so on. So it's because of practice of maranasati, one has a sense of agency. In Pali means the feeling of samvega, to strive diligently. if one doesn't know death, one may we can say one may not be able to put forth all the effort or to practice, or one has a tendency to delay or to postpone the practice or to become sluggish in the practice. Then we practice Asubha Bhavana for the purpose of overcoming attachment to sensual object. Then, as you know, the purpose of practicing Metta Bhavana is to overcome dosa, such as the hindrance of ill will. And the mind, when the mind is restless, one also can practice Metta Bhavana. So if one knows about this practice of flow protracted meditation, then it's good to practice in the early morning, in the first session of sitting. So have you practiced Chaturaraka Dhamma Bhavana before? So sometimes you can consider to begin the Vipassana meditation by practicing Chaturaraka Bhavana. So this practice metta just like past clearing, or you clear away the past. Then when one develops mindfulness well and is able to attain deeper concentration, then meditators begin to realize some insight knowledge. So this development of Vipassana, like removing of the cobwebs. If the very young trees is fully covered by the cobwebs, it may not be able to grow. So this development of Vipassana, like removing the cobwebs, is because during the practice of Vipassana, the inherent tendency inherent tendency for defilements still can arise. This inherent tendency is referred to the defilements caused by sensual objects. It means the arising of the latent defilements caused by sensual objects. For example, when a mental object arising, for example, the face of one's enemy, then if one could not mindful of it well, anger will be arising, aversion will be arising. Then when there's a noise, then if one could not mindful of it well, that noise also can cause the manifestation of defilements like anger or thoughts of ill will. So this cobweb, like the aramana nusaya. So if one could not mindful of the sense door, the sixth sense door well, aramana nusaya will develop. So if one can mindful of the sixth sense door well, eventually they could overcome this aramana nusaya. For example, when the mind think of the past, sometimes the mind think of the past, then feeling of anger arising. So then one should mindful and note anger. So one has to mindful and note the most current mental states. If one pays attention to that thinking or memory that caused the anger to arise, if one pay attention to that thinking, the contents of the thinking, then it's not easy to overcome the defilements of anger. But when one can turn the mindfulness, pay full attention to mental anger, then anger would disappear quite soon. If one is mindful of the contact or sense object with the sense door well, eventually one will not be disturbed or distracted by the sense object again. For example, if this thinking always cause anger to arise, then meditators mindful when there's anger, no anger, anger disappear. Then very soon the mind think back the same incident again. Anger could be arising, no anger, anger. So when meditators could mindful and note quicker and quicker, or even more instantly, eventually meditators can note their thinking well. So when meditators can note that thinking as thinking, that thinking would disappear or pass away instantly. So in other words, meditators realize the instant passing away of the thinking or that thinking. Then anger that was caused by that thinking would not arise again. This anger can arise because one could not realize the true natures of the mental object, for example, that thinking. When you realize the nature of impermanent, do you think that clinging can arise? Clinging can arise. We have attachment or clinging because we have not realized the nature of impermanence of that sense object. So that's why thinking or memory, although some thinking or memory cause defilements to arise or emotional feelings to arise, yet we want to think again, or the mind likes to go back to the past. But if you can mindful of this present moment means when the mind is thinking of that past incident, you know thinking, or if there's anger, you know anger, until the mental state disappear by itself. So eventually, one could overcome the defilements caused by this sensual object. So this way of removing or overcoming the mental defilements is also known as Tatanga Pahana. Tatanga Pahana is here is translated as partial removal. In other words, one remove the defilements due to that sense object. So by being mindful of the present moment, one remove the defilements caused by the sense objects. So this Tatanga Pahana will eventually pave the way to Samucceda Pahana. Samucceda Pahana means permanent removal or abandon completely the mental defilements by path knowledge. So in other words, path knowledge has the power to remove the latent defilements, anusaya kilesa, completely. So Tatanga paved the way to Samucceda Pahana. So this element of Vipassana knowledge, like removing the cobwebs. In other words, if the practice is overpowered by defilements, then one cannot make progress. Just like if the practice or insight knowledge is defiled by mana or DT, wrong view, and craving, then one cannot make progress. One cannot realize a valid insight knowledge. Sati or sati, panya, beautiful mental states, or known as sobhana cetasika. But if the practice of sati, development of panya, is accompanied by, for example, craving or strong desires or mana, then one cannot make progress. So mindfulness meditators have to be watchful that so that their practice is not defiled. So these 5 factors give support to the attainment of supramundane dharma. So the first factor is virtuous behavior, or purification of sila. The second is learning, or gathering knowledge, the pariyati. We can say pariyati. Then the third is discussions, in order to clear the doubt, just like removing the weeds. The fourth is calmness or samatha, just like clearing away of the past. Then the insight means development of vipassana knowledge. So when one have these all factors, then one you have the benefits of liberation of the mind, liberation by wisdom. So which all meditators will bear in mind the teachings of the Buddha well, follow the right practice of Satipatthana meditation, so that eventually you could remove your mental defilements and attain the supramundane dharma.
สาธุ สาธุ สาธุ